They didn't just bruise her body, they tried to break her spirit. Maya dared to fight back after a violent, unjust arrest. But just as justice seemed possible, fake evidence emerged, twisting her into the villain. Now, threats haunt her steps and manufactured doubt gnaws at her soul. Who can she trust in this web of lies and danger? Will the truth be buried forever? Experience the raw tension and shocking reveals in From Victim to Warrior. This Black woman's story will change how you see police brutality. The July air hung thick and heavy over Oakland, California, smelling of drought dust, eucalyptus, and the faint, metallic tang of anxiety that seemed a permanent fixture in the city's atmosphere. Maya Johnson knew that smell. At 28, she'd breathed it her whole life. Tonight, though, she was trying to exhale it, walking home from her late shift at the Community Arts Center, the strap of her tote bag digging comfortably into her shoulder. Inside were sketches, half-formed ideas for murals that would splash color onto the perpetually beige walls of the low-income clinic nearby. Art was her language, her solace, her quiet rebellion against a world that often felt too loud, too harsh. She turned onto Elmwood Avenue, a street caught between the creeping tendrils of gentrification, a new artisanal coffee shop gleaming next to a boarded-up laundromat, and the stubborn roots of the community that had always been there. Music spilled from an open window, a soulful bass line thrumming against the chirping crickets. Maya smiled, a fleeting moment of peace. She was almost home. Then the sirens. Not distant, but close. Getting closer. Red and blue lights painted the Victorian houses in frantic, strobing hues. Two police cruisers screeched to a halt just ahead, boxing in a nondescript sedan. Maya instinctively slowed her pace, a familiar knot tightening in her stomach. This was the landscape of her life. Beauty and tension, side by side. She kept to the sidewalk, head down, wanting only to pass, to reach the sanctuary of her apartment. Two officers, white, burly, radiating an aggressive energy that felt like static electricity, yanked the driver out of the sedan. He was young, black, maybe early 20s, wearing a hoodie despite the heat. His hands were up, his voice trembling but clear. "I didn't do anything. What's going on? Shut up. Hands on the car," one officer barked, shoving him forward. The other scanned the surroundings, his gaze sweeping, hard and suspicious. It landed on Maya. She froze. "Just keep walking." A voice screamed inside her head. "Don't look. Don't engage." But her feet felt glued to the pavement. She saw the driver flinch as the officer roughly patted him down. She saw the fear in his eyes, a mirror of the fear coiling in her own gut. "You! What are you looking at?" The second officer's voice cracked like a whip. He started towards her. "Nothing," Maya said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm just walking home." "Walking home? Or waiting for your boy here?" His tone dripped with insinuation. Prejudice wasn't just an abstract concept. It was this sneer, this assumption, this immediate categorization based on nothing but the color of her skin. "I don't know him," Maya insisted, trying to keep her voice steady, respectful. Years of ingrained caution, lessons learned from her parents, her grandparents, screamed at her. "Be polite. Don't argue. Survive the encounter. Looks suspicious to me. What's in the bag?" He gestured towards her tote. "Art supplies. Sketches. Let me see it." It wasn't a request. Hesitantly, heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird, Maya lowered the bag. He snatched it, dumping the contents onto the sidewalk. Sketchbooks, charcoal pencils, tubes of paint scattered across the concrete. A small container of turquoise pigment burst open, dusting the ground like fallen sky. "Hey!" Maya cried out an involuntary protest. It felt like a violation, not just of her property, but of herself, Her dreams spilled onto the dirty pavement. That was her mistake. The protest. The flicker of defiance. Resisting? The officer snarled, stepping closer. The other officer had the young driver pinned against the car. No, He grabbed her arm. Hard. His fingers dug into her flesh like talons. You need to learn some respect. Panic flared, hot and blinding. Get off me. I haven't done anything. She tried to pull away. That's when it happened. The swift, brutal motion. He spun her around, slamming her face first against the brick wall of the building beside them. The impact knocked the breath out of her, sent stars exploding behind her eyelids. The rough brick scraped her cheek, a searing pain. Before she could process, her arms were wrenched behind her back, the cold bite of handcuffs snapping onto her wrists. Stop resisting, he yelled, though she was limp, stunned. I'm not resisting, she gasped, tasting blood and concrete dust. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the blood trickling from her cheek. She heard the driver yelling, "She wasn't doing anything. Leave her alone." His reward was being shoved harder against his car. Maya was hauled upright, dizzy, disoriented. The world swam in a blur of flashing lights and shouting. The officer who arrested her, his face contorted in anger, read her Miranda rights in a monotone, the words meaningless syllables in the roaring chaos of her mind. Humiliation washed over her, cold and sickening. People were watching now, shadows emerging from doorways, faces appearing in windows. Their eyes held a mixture of pity, fear, and a chillingly familiar resignation. She was pushed into the back of a cruiser. The door slammed shut, sealing her in a cage of plastic and metal. Through the grill, she saw her spilled art supplies on the sidewalk, the splash of turquoise pigment mocking her under the harsh glare of the streetlights. The language of her soul desecrated. The charge, she'd later learn, was resisting arrest and obstruction of justice. The young driver was let go minutes later. A case of mistaken identity, they'd said. No apology, just gone. But Maya wasn't mistaken identity. She was collateral damage. She was the embodiment of a system where suspicion followed her like a shadow, where her skin color was probable cause, where her mere presence near a scene was enough to brand her complicit, disposable. The drive to the station was a blur of shame and terror. The processing, the fingerprinting, the mugshot, each step felt like another layer of her identity being stripped away, replaced by a number, a file, a statistic. Released hours later, bruised, scraped, and carrying a citation that felt like a brand, Maya stumbled out into the pre-dawn gray. The city was quiet now, the air cool, but the peace she'd felt earlier was gone, shattered into a million irreparable pieces. The walk home felt impossibly long. Each shadow seemed to hold a threat. Each distant siren sent a fresh wave of panic through her. Inside her small apartment, the familiar posters on the walls, Frida Kahlo, Basquiat, Kara Walker, seemed to mock her. Their defiant art felt worlds away from the trembling, broken woman reflected in the hallway mirror. Her cheek was swollen and raw, a dark bruise blooming under her eye. Her wrists were chafed red. But the physical wounds were nothing compared to the gaping injury inside. They hadn't just arrested her body. They'd arrested her spirit. They'd taken her sense of safety, her belief in the possibility of just walking home, of existing peacefully in her own skin. That night, sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flashing lights, felt the rough hands, tasted the concrete. The foundation of her world had cracked, and through the fissures seeped a cold, terrifying awareness. She was a target, and the people sworn to protect her were the ones holding the weapon. The victim label felt heavy, suffocating. Little did she know, buried deep beneath the trauma, a different seed was beginning, imperceptibly, to stir. The seed of a warrior. The days following the arrest bled into one another. A smear of pain, sleeplessness, and a gnawing anxiety that settled deep in Maya's bones. The physical bruises faded, leaving faint yellow and purple ghosts on her skin. But the internal landscape remained ravaged. Simple things became fraught. The sound of a car door slamming, a sudden shout on the street, the sight of a police cruiser gliding past. Each sent jolts of adrenaline through her, leaving her trembling and breathless. She called in sick to the arts center, unable to face the well-meaning questions, the pitying glances. Her apartment, once a sanctuary, felt like a cage. The vibrant colors of her paints had stormed dull. Her sketchbooks lay untouched. The turquoise pigment stain on the sidewalk outside haunted her, a visible scar on the street mirroring the invisible ones she carried. Her parents, living across the bay in Richmond, were frantic with worry, their voices tight with a fear she recognized, the lifelong fear Black parents carry for their children in America. They offered support, urged her to fight, but their fear fueled her own. Friends called, texted, flooded her social media with messages of outrage and solidarity. A blurry cell phone video, shot by one of the neighbors who had watched from their window, had surfaced online. It didn't capture the initial slam against the wall, but it showed her being cuffed, her face streaked with tears and blood, her voice pleading her innocence. The hashtag Justice for Maya flickered briefly across local feeds, a small spark in the vast digital darkness. It brought validation but also vulnerability. Strangers debated her guilt or innocence in comment sections, picking apart her life based on a few seconds of grainy footage. Some defended the police, invoking cliches about resisting arrest, about bad neighborhoods. Prejudice, she saw, wasn't just enacted under the color of authority. It thrived in the anonymity of the keyboard, twisting narratives, poisoning wells of empathy. It was a corrosive force, undermining the very idea of shared humanity. A week after the incident, a knock echoed through her apartment. Not the tentative tap of a friend, but something firmer, more persistent. Maya's heart leaped into her throat. She peered through the peephole. A man stood there, mid-30s, sharp features, wearing a slightly rumpled blazer over a t-shirt. He held up a press credential. Liam O'Connell, Oakland Ledger. Reluctantly, she opened the door a crack. "What do you want, Ms. Johnson?" "Maya." His voice was calm, surprisingly gentle. "I'm covering your story. I saw the video. I read the initial police report. Something doesn't add up." Maya hesitated. Talking to the press felt like inviting more scrutiny, more pain. "There's nothing to say." "I think there is." Liam persisted, his gaze direct, serious. "The official narrative says you interfered, that you were aggressive. That's not what the video suggests. And the officer who arrested you, Officer Davies, he has a history." Intrigue, sharp and unexpected, pierced through Maya's fog of fear. A history, complaints, excessive force allegations. Nothing stuck officially, but there's a pattern. "I think they're trying to bury this, make you the problem." He paused. "Look, I know this is hard, but staying silent lets them control the story. Your story." His words resonated. Control. That's what had been stolen from her, control over her body, her safety, her narrative. Maybe talking wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the first step in taking it back. She opened the door wider. Liam came in, his presence filling the small space. He was observant, taking in the art supplies gathering dust, the posters on the wall. He didn't push, didn't pry immediately. He asked about her art, listened patiently as she haltingly described her work at the community center. He created a pocket of normalcy in the suffocating abnormality of her life. Slowly, cautiously, Maya began to talk. about the walk home, the music, the sudden chaos, about the feeling of being targeted, the injustice of it. As she spoke, Liam took notes, his expression shifting from professional detachment to something deeper, empathy, maybe even anger on her behalf. The other officer, Maya said, frowning, trying to recall the details through the haze of trauma. He was there with the driver. He didn't intervene when Davies grabbed me. He just watched. Officer Miller, Liam supplied. Younger guy, cleaner record, but partners stick together. Liam explained the legal hurdles she faced. The obstruction charge was vague, often used when other charges wouldn't hold. Resisting arrest, even if the initial stop was questionable, could be twisted against her. The system seemed designed to protect itself. He also mentioned the inconsistencies. The police report claimed she'd physically tried to block Officer Davies from reaching the driver of the sedan, something the video, brief as it was, clearly contradicted. It mentioned verbal threats she supposedly made, words she knew she hadn't uttered, lies written in bland officialese, designed to justify the violence inflicted upon her. Someone inside might be sympathetic, Liam mused, tapping his pen. Sometimes, cops get tired of covering for the bad apples. An anonymous tip, maybe? It was a long shot, he admitted, but he was digging. Over the next few days, Liam became a regular visitor. He brought coffee, shared information he was uncovering, listened as Maya processed the trauma and the mounting anger. A fragile connection formed between them, built on shared outrage and a tentative trust. There was an undeniable spark, an attraction simmering beneath the surface of their interactions, but both were wary. Her life was in turmoil. His job was to report on it. Romance felt like a dangerous complication, yet his presence was a lifeline. He saw her not just as a victim or a story, but as a person. He validated her experience, channeled her helplessness into a potential path forward. He connected her with a pro bono civil rights lawyer, Evelyn Reed, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who specialized in police misconduct cases. Evelyn was blunt. "These cases are tough, Maya. It's your word against theirs, and they wear the badge. The video helps, but it's not definitive proof of what happened before the cuffs went on. We need more." The storm was gathering. Legal motions were filed. The police department issued a standard statement defending the officer's actions. Online, the debate raged, fueled by Liam's initial reporting, which highlighted Davies's past complaints. But with the attention came darker undercurrents. Anonymous comments escalated to veiled threats. A car matching the description of an unmarked police vehicle was seen parked down the street late at night. Paranoia became her constant companion. One evening, as Liam was leaving, he paused at the door. "Be careful, Maya. Davies feels cornered. Desperate people do desperate things." The fear returned, cold and sharp. But this time, something else mingled with it, a flicker of defiance. They wanted her scared. They wanted her silent. They expected her to crumble. The injustice wasn't just the assault. It was the expectation that she would quietly absorb it, disappear into the statistics of unresolved complaints. Liam's investigation, Evelyn's legal strategy, the tentative support of her community, they were pieces of a potential shield. But Maya realized the shield wasn't enough. She needed a weapon, not a weapon of violence, but one of truth. Her voice. The storm was breaking, and she couldn't just hide from it. She had to find a way to stand in the rain. The decision wasn't a sudden epiphany, more like a slow dawn breaking after a long, dark night. It came in fragments. A supportive message from a stranger who shared a similar story. A conversation with Evelyn Reed about the power of narrative in court. A look in the mirror where, beneath the lingering bruise, Maya saw not just fear, but a simmering resolve. The fear hadn't vanished, But it was no longer paralyzing. It was morphing into fuel. Her first step was small, hesitant. A neighborhood council meeting discussing community police relations. Maya sat in the back, heart hammering, listening to the familiar platitudes from a police liaison officer, the frustrated sighs from residents. When the floor opened for public comment, she felt rooted to her chair. Liam, sitting a few rows ahead, caught her eye and gave a subtle nod of encouragement. Evelyn, beside her, squeezed her arm gently. Taking a deep breath, Maya stood. All eyes turned towards her. Her voice trembled as she introduced herself. "My name is Maya Johnson. 3 weeks ago, I was walking home on Elmwood Avenue." She told her story, simply, clearly, without embellishment. She spoke of the spilled paint, the scrape of brick against her skin, the cold click of handcuffs, the crushing weight of humiliation. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse wildly. She just laid out the facts, her voice gaining strength as she recounted the inconsistencies, the dismissal of her humanity. A hush fell over the room. When she finished, silence stretched for a beat. Then applause started, scattered at first, then growing louder, more sustained. People looked at her with newfound respect, some with tears in their eyes. The police liaison officer shifted uncomfortably, offering mumbled assurances of an internal investigation. It felt hollow, but Maya hadn't spoken for him. She'd spoken for herself. She'd spoken for the young man pulled from his car. She'd spoken for countless others whose stories remained unheard. Walking out of the meeting, the night air felt different, lighter. She had taken a piece of her stolen narrative back. Liam met her outside, his professional mask softened by genuine admiration. "You were incredible, Maya." "It was terrifying," she admitted, a shaky laugh escaping her. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," he said softly. "It's acting despite it." In the following weeks, Maya found more platforms. Encouraged by Evelyn and supported by a growing network of local activists, she agreed to more interviews, carefully curated, focusing on the facts, the systemic issues. Liam's reporting continued, meticulously documenting Officer Davies's history, interviewing reluctant witnesses, piecing together a narrative the department fought hard to suppress. He uncovered 2 more settled lawsuits against Davies for excessive force, previously sealed. The relationship between Maya and Liam deepened, blurring the lines between source and confidant, journalist and something more. They shared late-night coffees dissecting case details, walks by Lake Merritt where conversation drifted from legal strategy to dreams and fears. The attraction was palpable, a quiet intensity building between them. But the ethical complexities remained a constant, unspoken tension. Was his interest genuine, or was she just the story? Could she trust him, truly, when his profession demanded a certain detachment? "I worry sometimes," Maya confessed one evening, sitting on her fire escape, watching the city lights twinkle below, "that I'm just material for you." Liam turned, his expression serious. "You're not just material, Maya. What happened to you matters. You matter. Yes, I'm a journalist, and this story needs to be told. But that doesn't negate." He trailed off, searching for the right words. "It doesn't negate how I feel when I'm with you. Complicates things, hell yes. But it doesn't make it less real." His sincerity chipped away at her defenses. She wanted to believe him. In the midst of the chaos, the connection with Liam felt like an anchor. It was a fragile, complicated hope, but hope nonetheless. Meanwhile, the legal battle trudged forward. Evelyn filed a civil suit against Officer Davies and the city. The police union provided Davies with aggressive legal representation, painting Maya as an opportunist, exaggerating her injuries, dredging up irrelevant details from her past, a minor truancy charge from high school, suddenly presented as evidence of inherent defiance. prejudice cloaked in legal maneuvering. Officer Miller, Davies's partner, remained silent. Subpoenaed for deposition, he gave clipped, evasive answers, sticking closely to the official report, his eyes avoiding Maya's. Was he conflicted, as Liam initially suspected, or just complicit? The ambiguity was maddening. The pushback intensified. Maya's mural at the clinic was vandalized overnight, spray-painted with racial slurs and threats. "Drop the lawsuit, bitch." The violation felt deeply personal, an attack on her art, her community contribution, her very identity. Fear spiked again, sharp and icy. She installed extra locks on her door, jumped at every unexpected noise. But the vandalism intended to silence her had the opposite effect. It galvanized the community. Neighbors organized a cleanup, painting over the hate with messages of love and solidarity. Donations flowed into a legal defense fund. People who had been hesitant to get involved now stepped forward. The attack revealed the ugliness Maya was fighting against, making the stakes clearer for everyone. Maya, shaken but resolute, channeled her anger back into her art. She started sketching again, not idyllic landscapes, but raw, powerful images of resistance, resilience, shadowed figures under flashing lights, hands reaching for justice. Her art became intertwined with her activism, another way to speak her truth, to process the trauma and transmute it into strength. Liam got a breakthrough. An anonymous email arrived late one night, containing a partially redacted internal memo. It hinted at pressure within the department to clear Davies quickly, to manage the optics of the situation. The source was untraceable, but the content was explosive. It suggested a cover-up, reaching higher than just one rogue officer. "This could be it, Maya," Liam said, his voice buzzing with excitement, showing her the printout. "This could blow the lid off." The intrigue deepened. Who was the source? Was it Miller finally breaking ranks? Or someone else playing a different game? The path ahead felt treacherous, fraught with hidden agendas and potential betrayals. Maya looked at the memo, then at Liam's hopeful face. She felt a surge of determination, mixed with a growing unease. Finding her voice was one thing. Navigating the murky depths of systemic corruption, where truth was a casualty and allies could be phantoms, was another battle entirely. She was no longer just fighting for herself. She was stepping into the heart of a much larger, more dangerous storm. The victim was fading, the warrior was emerging, but the cost of this transformation was becoming terrifyingly clear. The anonymous memo acted like kerosene on a smoldering fire. Liam's subsequent article, carefully worded to protect his source while exposing the memo's implications of an internal cover-up, sent shockwaves through the city administration and the Oakland Police Department. The carefully constructed official narrative began to crumble under the weight of public scrutiny and mounting evidence. #Justice for Maya trended nationally, amplified by civil rights organizations and celebrities weighing in. Maya found herself an reluctant symbol of a nationwide struggle, but increased visibility brought increased danger. The threats escalated from anonymous online comments to chillingly specific messages slipped under her apartment door. "We know where you live. Watch your back." Once, walking home late from a strategy meeting with Evelyn, she was sure she was being followed the slow crawl of a dark sedan, headlights off, mirroring her pace for several blocks before speeding away when she ducked into a crowded corner store. The constant vigilance was exhausting, fraying her nerves raw. Liam, increasingly protective, insisted on walking her home, his presence a comfort but also a stark reminder of the danger she was in. Their relationship intensified under the pressure cooker environment. Stolen moments between legal briefings and community rallies became precious islands of intimacy. They shared fears and frustrations, the lines between journalist and partner blurring further. Liam's fierce dedication to her story was undeniable, but Maya still wrestled with the inherent conflict. When he pushed for more details, more access, was it for the story or for her? The ambiguity gnawed at her. "I need to be able to report freely, Maya," he'd said during one tense conversation. "If this gets deeper, if it involves more than just Davies, I can't hold back because of us. And I need to know," she countered, her voice tight, "that the person I'm leaning on isn't just waiting for the next scoop. My life isn't just a headline, Liam." They navigated this tightrope carefully, the romance adding a layer of profound vulnerability to an already perilous situation. It was a love story written in the margins of a legal battle, beautiful and fragile, constantly threatened by the harsh realities surrounding them. Evelyn Reed pushed forward with the civil suit, using the memo and Liam's reporting to bolster their case. Depositions became more contentious. Officer Davies, arrogant and dismissive, stuck to his story, his lawyer aggressively challenging Maya's credibility. Officer Miller, however, seemed increasingly stressed. During his second deposition, under relentless questioning from Evelyn about the inconsistencies between his statement and the video evidence, he faltered. He fidgeted, contradicted himself on minor details, sweat beading on his forehead. He seemed trapped, caught between loyalty to his partner and the undeniable facts. Liam, observing from the back, scribbled furiously in his notepad. Hope flickered. Maybe Miller was the source? Maybe he was about to break? The hope was short-lived. A few days later, a bombshell dropped. The city filed a motion to dismiss Maya's case, citing a newly discovered piece of evidence. Security footage from a liquor store down the street from the incident, time-stamped moments before her arrest. The grainy footage showed Maya exchanging words with the young driver of the sedan. It was impossible to hear what was said, but the angle made it look like a heated argument. "They're fabricating a prior connection," Evelyn fumed, pacing her office. "Trying to establish motive for you interfering. This stinks to high heaven." That footage wasn't in the initial discovery. The police department, through their lawyers and press releases, immediately spun the narrative. Maya wasn't an innocent bystander. She knew the driver. She was involved in the initial, still unspecified, reason for the traffic stop. The carefully built momentum threatened to reverse. Online trolls resurfaced with renewed vigor, calling her a liar, a thug sympathizer. The corrosive power of prejudice, armed with manufactured doubt, was working overtime. Doubt began to creep into Maya's own mind. Had she misremembered? Had she said something innocuous that could be twisted? The trauma of the event made her memories feel slippery, unreliable. The gaslighting was insidious, attacking her confidence, her very perception of reality. Liam worked frantically to debunk the new evidence. He tracked down the liquor store owner, who nervously admitted that officers had visited him multiple times, pressuring him about the footage. He couldn't confirm tampering, but the circumstances were suspicious. Liam also received another anonymous communication. Not an email this time, but a plain envelope slipped into his mailbox. Inside was a single sheet of paper detailing procedural irregularities in how Officer Miller had handled evidence logs in a previous, unrelated case. It wasn't a smoking gun for Maya's case, but it chipped away at Miller's credibility, suggesting a potential pattern of corner-cutting or worse. Was Miller the leak, trying to subtly discredit Davies without directly implicating himself? Or was someone else feeding Liam information, playing a longer game? The intrigue deepened, becoming a confusing maze of half-truths and hidden motives. The stress took its toll. Maya suffered panic attacks, nightmares. Her artwork became darker, more fragmented. The warrior spirit flickered, threatened by exhaustion and despair. She saw how easily the system could manipulate truth, how prejudice provided fertile ground for lies to take root. It wasn't just about bad cops. It was about a structure designed to protect itself, often at the expense of the marginalized. Unity felt fragile. Love felt distant, obscured by the fog of suspicion and fear. One evening, overwhelmed, Maya broke down in Liam's arms. "I don't know if I can do this," she sobbed. "They twist everything. They make me feel like the criminal. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should just—" Liam held her tightly. "Don't you dare," he whispered fiercely. "Don't let them win. What they're doing is wrong, Maya. It's unjust. It's built on a foundation of prejudice that infects everything it touches. Your voice, your truth, is the antidote. It's chipping away at them. Don't you see? That's why they're fighting so dirty." He pulled back, looking into her eyes. "This is bigger than Davies. This is bigger than this lawsuit. But your fight right now matters immensely. Don't let them extinguish your fire." His words, his unwavering belief in her, helped reignite her resolve. The price of truth was agonizingly high. Her peace, her safety, perhaps even her relationship with Liam felt constantly on the brink. But the price of silence was higher. It was complicity. It was allowing the corrosive distortions of hate and bias to win. She straightened her shoulders, the warrior within stirring once more, bruised but not broken. The final confrontation was approaching, but the path to justice, she sensed, would hold more twists than she could possibly imagine. The courtroom buzzed with a low hum of anticipation. Media packed the benches, flanked by community activists wearing #JusticeForMaya t-shirts and stony-faced police officers showing solidarity with their own. Maya sat beside Evelyn Reed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, trying to project a calm she didn't feel. Across the aisle, Officer Davies smirked, whispering to his union lawyer. Officer Miller sat rigidly behind them, his gaze fixed on the empty witness stand. Liam was in the press section, his eyes finding Maya's, offering a silent look of support that tightened the knot in her stomach, a confusing mix of gratitude and apprehension. The civil trial had been a grueling affair. Evelyn meticulously presented the video evidence, witness testimonies from neighbors, and Liam's documented history of Davies's excessive force complaints. The defense countered aggressively, hammering on the ambiguous liquor store footage, questioning Maya's character, portraying Davies as a dedicated officer making split-second decisions in a dangerous situation. The turning point seemed to come with Officer Miller's testimony. Cornered by Evelyn's sharp questioning about the discrepancies in his report and the convenient appearance of the liquor store footage, he crumbled. Not entirely, but enough. He admitted under oath that Davies had initiated the physical contact with Maya, that she hadn't physically interfered, and that the heated exchange narrative around the liquor store footage felt exaggerated in the internal reports he'd signed off on. He stopped short of accusing Davies of falsifying evidence, but painted a picture of immense pressure to conform to a narrative that protected his partner. It felt like a partial victory, a crack in the blue wall of silence. Liam's subsequent reporting on Miller's testimony, coupled with the previously leaked information about procedural irregularities, intensified the pressure. Public opinion swung heavily in Maya's favor. A settlement seemed imminent. Then came the verdict in the civil suit. The jury found Officer Davies liable for battery and false arrest. A victory. Cheers erupted from Maya's supporters. But the damages awarded were insultingly small, barely covering Maya's initial medical bills and lost wages. Furthermore, the jury did not find sufficient evidence of malicious intent or a conspiracy to violate her civil rights, effectively clearing the city of broader responsibility and shielding Davies from punitive damages. The message was clear. A cop had roughed up a black woman without cause, but it was deemed a momentary lapse, not part of a pattern, not worthy of significant consequence. Davies would likely keep his job, protected by union appeals and departmental inertia. The air rushed out of Maya, felt like a punch to the gut. a win that felt like a loss. Justice, it seemed, had been calculated on a scale heavily weighted by bias, valuing her pain and trauma at next to nothing. Prejudice wasn't just overt hate. It was the systemic devaluation of Black life and Black suffering, codified in legal outcomes. That evening, Liam received one final anonymous communication. Not a leak this time, but a cryptic message. Miller wasn't the source. He was protecting himself. Check Davies's off-duty security contracts. Follow the money. Liam, working with a data analyst colleague, dug deep. What they found was staggering. Officer Davies, through a shell company, held lucrative side contracts providing security consultation for several new luxury condo developments displacing long-term residents in Maya's neighborhood. His aggressive policing in the area, often targeting homeless individuals and minority youth, directly benefited his clients by cleaning up the streets for gentrification. His actions weren't just random brutality or racial bias. They were financially motivated, part of the systematic displacement masked by law and order rhetoric. Miller knew about it, likely received kickbacks, and his partial confession was a calculated move to minimize his own exposure, throwing Davies under the bus just enough to save himself from deeper investigation. The internal memo leak hadn't come from Miller. It likely came from a rival faction within the department or someone Davies had crossed. The truth was uglier, more complex, and far more systemic than Maya had imagined. It wasn't just one bad apple. It was the rot in the barrel, intertwined with economic forces reshaping the city. Liam brought the findings to Maya, his face grim. This changes everything. It's not just police brutality, it's corruption, linked to the gentrification pushing people out. Miller played us all. Maya felt a strange sense of clarity wash over her. The disappointment of the verdict, the revelation about Davies's motives, Miller's betrayal, it coalesced into a cold, hard understanding. The legal system had offered a flawed, compromised version of justice. Fighting one officer, even winning in court, hadn't addressed the root cause. Davies was a symptom, not the disease. The disease was a system that allowed prejudice, greed, and violence to flourish under the guise of order. A system that protected its own and devalued lives like hers. This was the truly unexpected ending. Not a clear win or a tragic loss in court, but the revelation of a deeper, more insidious fight. Her victim-to-warrior journey wasn't culminating in personal vindication against Davies, but in the realization of a much larger battlefield. "Publish it, Liam," she said, her voice steady, devoid of the tremor it once held. "Publish all of it. The security contracts, Miller's complicity, the link to gentrification. Everything. It could put you in more danger, Maya," he warned, his concern for her warring with his journalistic instincts. "The silence is more dangerous," she replied, meeting his gaze. The complexity of their relationship remained, but in this moment, their purpose aligned. People need to know how deep this goes. It's not just about me anymore. It's about this whole community. It's about how easily love and unity are fractured by greed and bias disguised as progress. Liam's article, meticulously sourced and devastating in its implications, landed like a bomb. It didn't just indict Davies and Miller. It exposed the nexus of policing, political influence, and real estate development that was reshaping Oakland, often violently displacing its most vulnerable residents. It sparked outrage, official investigations, this time with real teeth, and widespread public debate about the true meaning of public safety and who it served. Davies was eventually suspended pending investigation, his reputation ruined. Miller faced internal affairs scrutiny, but Maya knew their fates were secondary. Her real victory wasn't in their downfall, but in what rose from the ashes of her ordeal. With Liam now openly by her side, their relationship solidified by the shared battle, the ethical lines redrawn by the sheer scale of the corruption they uncovered. Maya didn't retreat. She leaned in, using the platform her case had inadvertently given her, fueled by the community's energy and armed with the devastating truth Liam had uncovered. She co-founded the Oakland Coalition for Community Justice. It wasn't just about police brutality. It was about housing rights, economic justice, and genuine community-led safety initiatives. Her art found new purpose, adorning banners at rallies, illustrating reports, telling the stories the powerful tried to erase. The final scene isn't in a courtroom. It's months later, at a packed community forum in the auditorium of the Arts Center where she used to work. Maya stands at the podium, no longer the trembling victim of Elmwood Avenue, but a leader. Her voice is clear, resonant, carrying the weight of experience and the fire of conviction. Liam stands in the wings, watching her, a camera in hand, partner and chronicler both. They tried to break me, Maya tells the crowd, her eyes sweeping over the diverse faces, old neighbors, new activists, people whose lives were touched by the same systemic injustices. They tried to reduce my story to a statistic, my pain to a minor settlement. They underestimated our resilience. They underestimated our power when we stand together against the prejudice that seeks to divide us, against the greed that masquerades as progress. She speaks of building bridges, not walls, of demanding accountability not just from individuals, but from the systems that empower them. She speaks of art as resistance, of community as strength, of love as the ultimate act of defiance against hate. My journey started in trauma, she concludes, her voice ringing with hard-won strength. But it doesn't end there. It continues with us, with our collective fight for a city, a country, where everyone can walk home safely, where justice isn't a lottery, and where protect and serve isn't a shield for corruption and bias. I was a victim. Now, alongside all of you, I am a warrior, and our fight has just begun. The applause is thunderous, not just appreciation, but commitment. The ending isn't neat. Davies's final fate remains uncertain. The systemic battle is far from won. But Maya's transformation is complete. Her story didn't just change how people saw police brutality. It illuminated the interconnectedness of injustice and sparked a movement. It's an ending that doesn't offer easy closure, but instead ignites reflection, demanding the audience ask, what is true justice? And what is my role in fighting for it? The debate, like Maya's work, continues.